special guest speaker, who is the mayor of the city of Piqua, Catherine Casey Hines. Casey?
Thank you. It truly is an honor to be here today, and I have to say, when I first began to speak with Beth and Lisa to talk about what it was we were going to share today, the stories just kept flowing about the YWCA, and the people and the names and the faces kept flowing. So my attempt today is to do the best to honor 100 years of the YWCA here in Piqua. Now, as you can imagine, that's a lot of people and a lot of stuff that has happened here in our community. Pretty amazing things. So this is going to be just a little bit of the things that I'm going to share today, but as you know, there is so much more that has happened here in this place. And our community is a better place because of the YWCA. So I hope that as I share some empowering women from the past, some empowering women from today, and think about all of our stories in the midst of that, we can think about what it is we are called to do here in this place and the good work that the YWCA does here in Piqua, Miami County, and in our country as well. As I start, I want to give a special thanks to the Piqua Public Library, especially Jim Oda and Gary Meek, who helped me get some of this information together. I will say forgive me for any errors or misrepresentations that I might have. They gave me a variety of pictures and slides and things that will connect our story together this day. So, let's get started. So, as I was thinking about the YWCA, I thought, well, let's first start with a timeline. Kind of where did all of this begin? Not only here in Piqua, but in our country and nationally and internationally as well. So you'll see here that the first YWCA was established in England in 1855, when two groups met to aid women. One group formed a prayer union to pray for women, and the other founded the Christian Homes for Young Women. So it actually started, I don't know if you all knew this, it actually started in England in 1855. Then in 1858, the first association in the U.S., the Ladies Christian Association, was formed in New York City. And then from there, in 1860, the first boarding house for female students, teachers, and factory workers opened in New York City. And then in 1866, the YWCA was first used in Boston. The first time that the YWCA, the Young Women's Christian Association, was actually used in our country. In 1889, I thought this was a really interesting piece of tidbit history about the YWCA, because this is 1889. The first African-American YWCA branch opened in Dayton, Ohio. Talk about movers and shakers here in Ohio. 1889. Pretty amazing that that happened in our own backyard. Then in 1907, the YWCA of the USA was incorporated in New York City. In 1915, the YWCA held its first interracial conference in Louisville, Kentucky. Do you see a theme happening here? Movers and shakers, as you think about what was going on in our world in 1915 and how the YWCA was reacting and moving our country in a forward-thinking way in light of what was happening in 1915. And then in 1919, the YWCA held the International Conference, listen to this, 1919, of women physicians. Women physicians in 1919. It was the first gathering for women doctors. It was a 6-week-long gathering that focused on women's health issues and included attendees from 32 countries. Pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. Now, in 1919, it brings us here to Piqua. 1919, Piqua's YWCA came into existence. And in March 1919, and this is an actual quote from some YWCA literature. The YWCA campaign stated this: "Pickwa's girlhood is upon the dawning of a new tomorrow. Inside the blue triangle is a place for every girl. All creeds and all races know its bonds of friendship. Side by side marched the girls from factories, stores, laundries, offices, schools, and college. Girls from homes of wealth and girls without homes." Pretty amazing thinking about our city here in Piqua and what was going on at that time, and the fact that the YWCA was a place of inclusion, a place of bringing women together here in our city. And then in 1936, the YWCA held the interracial seminar, marking the first intercollegiate interracial co-ed conference in the South. And I come from the South, so for me, this type of history and what was going on is really, really important in 1936. And here again, Ohio makes some history. In 1938, the YWCA in Columbus, Ohio, established a desegregated dining facility and is cited by the Columbus Urban League for a courageous step forward in human relations. Again, pretty amazing that this is what the YWCA was about in 1938. And then in the 1930s, the YWCA encouraged members to speak out against lynching and mob violence, and for interracial cooperation and efforts to protect Black people's basic civic rights. Again, it was the women of the YWCA that were on the forefront, moving our country forward and providing the reminder that we all are to be included. So then in 1960, again, down in the South, the Atlanta YWCA cafeteria opened to Black African Americans, becoming the city's first integrated public dining facility. Throughout the 1960s, YWCA integrated its branches and its facilities. Again, in Atlanta, Georgia, this was pretty amazing in 1960 in the South. And then in 2007, the YWCA of Trenton, New Jersey, and the YWCA of Princeton, New Jersey, established the Stand Against Racism campaign, which spread to 39 states with over 250,000 participants. So, pretty quick history of the YWCA, including some of the things that happened here in our own backyard in Ohio. But yes, the YWCA has been at the forefront of the most crucial social movements for more than 160 years. From women's empowerment and civil rights to affordable housing and pay equity to violence prevention and health care. The YWCA is dedicated to eliminating racism, empowering women, and promoting peace, justice, freedom, and dignity for all. The YWCA's mission statement, which was adopted by General Assembly 2009, is this: the YWCA is dedicated to eliminating racism, empowering women, and promoting peace and justice, freedom, and dignity for all. So that gives you a little background of the YWCA, and I thought it was important before I continue to tell you a little bit about how the YWCA has impacted my life. So, these are a few older pictures of me from just a few years ago. I grew up in West Palm Beach, Florida, so you see the YWCA logo up there of Palm Beach County. I grew up going to our local YWCA for swimming lessons. I loved my time at the YWCA. Whenever I would walk through the front door, there was always somebody there to greet me. And I remember as a small child wondering what all these women were that actually lived in this house where I walked through to get to the pool to go to swimming lessons. I had an amazing swim instructor. Her name was Rusty. And as you can imagine, with a name like Rusty, she had She had rusty red hair, she had freckles, but she taught me to swim. And I loved my time at the YWCA. I loved my time with Rusty, and it was a very, very important part of my childhood. The amazing thing in West Palm Beach, Florida, we had 2 YWCAs. We had the one that I first learned to swim at, and then they put one out on the western part of town. And for our swim team, we would go back and forth between the 2 YWCAs for swim team meets and other things. And again, it was just a wonderful, wonderful memory for me as a child. The YWCA is a huge part of West Palm Beach, Florida, still to this day. And it continues to work with its mission now through the Harmony House, which is a shelter for women of domestic violence. So you can see that the YWCA, not only here in Piqua, but for all of us, has many memories. So, now the YWCA begins in Piqua. So I'm going to step back a little bit as I talk about this because I want to make sure everybody can see these pictures. So does anybody know what this picture is of? You should know. Okay, yes, it's the underwear. It's one of the underwear factories. And I can't remember exactly which one, but it is one of the underwear factories. So Mrs. Elizabeth Hughes, the field secretary of the National YWCA, visited Piqua in January 4th, 1909. But it took some time for the idea of the YWCA to gain momentum. So in 1915, and some of these names may be memories for you, Mrs. A. Acton Hall, the president of the City Federation of Women's Clubs, began to once again promote the idea of a local YWCA here in Piqua. It was then that she met with numerous citizens interested in forming the Piqua YWCA. The need was established that they wanted something wholesome for the young girls to do, those that worked in the textile mills. And Jim Oda added, they wanted them to do something other than hang out in the local bars. It does sound like Jim, doesn't it? Yeah. So between 1915 and 1917, there was over $1,000 raised for the YWCA. World War I then interrupted the fundraising, but then in 1918, a $6,000 bequest from the estate of Robert Patterson got the campaign rolling again. Interesting. I asked Jim, I said, do you know if he was related to Lucy in some way? And he said, I'm sure, but I don't know exactly how. But it's interesting to think that back in those days, $6,000, that's a lot of money. And so then the campaign began to roll. A rally was then held on February 24th, 1919 at the Chamber of Commerce Auditorium to establish the Young Women's Christian Association here in Piqua. This piece on the left is from the Piqua Daily Call on the next day, talking about what happened at the rally, and that's in some of the historical archives here that Lisa showed me. It gathered over 300 self-supporting women of Piqua together, coming from the ranks of the workers in the mills, the offices, in schools, and in homes. Membership cards were given out, and blue triangle tags were given to the boosters. All of this then led to an organizational meeting held at the Piqua Daily Call building at 316 North Wayne Street, where Miss Lucy Patterson was elected the first YWCA's president. So the YWCA here in Piqua was the first organization for working women. Now you can tell that the Daily Call picture is not women in front of it. But that is one that Jim had shared with me because that is the building where the YWCA first began to meet. So here are some pictures. Oh, sorry about that. Here's some pictures of our underwear factories. The women of the YWCA were mostly young girls from 16 to 19. They were mostly single, and most worked in the textile mills, also known as Piqua's underwear factories. They then needed to raise money to cover their first 2 years' expenses. And they had about $10,000 to begin with, but they still needed more. So Lisa tells me they got really busy. They got really busy, and in just 3 days, they were able to raise $17,809. Pretty amazing, isn't it? You know, nothing can stop women when we put our mind to it. Can I get an amen to that? So these are the Superior Underwear Company workers. These were charter members of the YWCA. Then Miss Alice M. Bartlett of Maine was hired as the first general secretary. And on May 1st, 1919, almost 100 years ago today, an open house was then held at the YWCA headquarters on North Main Street. And by 1919 of October, over 1,300 women had enrolled as YWCA members. One of the most active groups in the early YWCA was the Blue Triangle Welfare Club, which had 5 divisions. And I'm going to do my best to pronounce these. And you people who are born and raised here in Piqua, you can help me with this. Biwelco? Did I get it right? Okay. First Welfare Club, composed of women from the Superior Underwear Company. Twighty? No, did I pronounce that right? Okay, I'm doing good so far. With women from the Atlas Underwear Company. Hitticlu, the High Times Club from the Orfelt and Blanket Company, this is a tongue Pickawillany from the Piqua Hosiery Company, and Swastika Smiles from the Imperial Underwear Company. Now I have to tell you that when I first saw Swastika Smiles, I got a little concerned. So I did a little research, because obviously this was before World War II. So swastika is an ancient religious icon that was used as a symbol of divinity and spirituality in many religions, and in the Western world it was a symbol of auspicious and good luck until around the 1930s. So that gives us some information as to why they were called Swastika Smiles. So the Piqua YWCA became a member of the National YWCA on November 23rd, 1919. And they bought the home here on North Wayne Street in 1920, and that's where we sit today. So these are just some different pictures of the building, with a few older cars in front. Boy. Oh boy, here we go again. I'm going to put this down. There we go. All right. So this is actually an armband from the Girl Reserve Armband. This is from the 1919, and it was worn on the left arm of Helen, I believe, Becker, in 7th and 8th grade, and she attended North Street School. So this is something that the young girls were wearing at that time. North Street School, that's now a park over here, isn't that right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think when my son was in Nicklin, they went over there and planted a tree on Arbor Day. So this is an article from the Piqua Daily Call in 1927. And so this gives just a little idea of some of the activities that were many and varied. This basically is, look at this, Piqua is proud of the YW. Welfare work of the YW is very important. Homemakers Club is first of its kind in any YW, and Piqua established its record. Social side of Piqua institution splendid. I mean, just all these things that were happening here at the YWCA. 1927, again, amazing women here in this community. So, today the Piqua YWCA advocates for women on many, many levels by bringing awareness to human trafficking, educating voters with the annual Meet the Candidates event, offering a safe haven for women who suffer from domestic violence, advocating for the needs of senior citizens, and providing wonderful gatherings of fellowship where friendships can flourish. offering wonderful opportunities of tour and travel, empowering the youth of our community through the Safe Sitter training, and in the Girls That Code program. Yearly MLK event, Women of Excellence Awards, and in their many classes that offer leadership development in many areas, and so much more. You know, it's really amazing that in our small town of Piqua, Ohio, that we have a YWCA. You know, the closest one to us are in much larger communities such as Dayton and Columbus. But here in Piqua, Ohio, we have a YWCA. It's pretty amazing. So I thought what I would do now is to introduce to you some women that were part of the YWCA in the early years, and then talk about some women that are part of it today, and then we can focus and reflect a little bit on our own lives with that as well. So the first one that I want to talk about is Miss Lucy Patterson. So she was 1871 to 1930, and you know her picture is out here in the hallway. She was born in Piqua. She is one of few in Piqua to have done graduate work at Columbia University. She was an enthusiastic and dedicated English teacher, touching the lives of Piqua students for over 35 years. She started teaching in 1906. She was the founding president of the YWCA. She served for 8 years, and she was the founder of the Piqua Storytellers League, and she was inducted into the Piqua Civic Hall of Fame in 2000. Miss Lucy Patterson. The next one, and I was not able to get a picture of her, but I have a picture of Lisa accepting the Hall of Fame award for her from Jim Oda. And this is Dorothy or Dolly Rudd. And I think he has 1873 to 1954. She was the first African-American woman in Piqua to own a local industry, Favorite Chemical and Supply Company, which made embalming fluid around 1934 to 1942. And she was very active in the YWCA. A woman who owned industry here in Piqua in the early 1930s. The next one is Viola Clemens. 1908 to 2004, many of you obviously remember her. She came to Piqua in 1925, and in the 1940s, she, along with her husband Emerson, who are pictured here, participated in the 1945 sit-in at Lunch Counter. Viola Clemens was the founder of the NAACP chapter here in Piqua as a way to stand up for social wrongs in her community. And soon after the conclusion of World War II, and a decade before Martin Luther King rose to prominence, Clemens, with the help of Congressman William McCulloch, in case legal help should be needed, staged a sit-in at the Dodge Taxi and Bus Terminal lunch counter that eventually led to the end of segregated restaurants here in Piqua. Clemens participated in another sit-in at Schines, is that right? Schines Theater? Schines Theater, prompting the management of the theater to end segregated seating in the back 3 rows. She was on the board of directors of the YWCA, and she also owned a catering business and was honored with the Order of George in 2001. Pretty amazing woman. Mover and shaker, has done a lot for our community and for the inclusion of people here, really pushing our community forward, which I think at the time, think about it, as a woman, as an African American woman in this community, pretty amazing what Ms. Clemens was able to do. Again, the women of the YWCA, strong and mighty. So next we have Ms. Irene Dittmer, 1905 to 1991. She was the executive secretary of the Piqua Community Chest in 1952, which later became the Piqua United Way. She retired in 1974. She was the president of the YWCA and served as a staff member with the Miami County Mental Health Association. Ms. Irene Dittmer. And I'm sure many of you remember her as well. Amazing woman here in our community. And next we have Miss Louise Taylor. Miss Louise Taylor, 1900 to 1996. She was an organizer of the NAACP youth group in the 1940s. She, along with Mrs. Cass, who is pictured here, Louise Taylor is on the left and Mrs. Cass is on the right, they organized the first local African American Girl Scout troop. She was an active member of the YWCA, and her son Joseph Taylor has returned to Piqua to bring his musical talents to many of the YWCA programs. She was a member of the Cyrene AME Church, and I have heard she baked the best rolls. Miss Louise Taylor and Miss Cass, amazing women here in Piqua. And I'm sure all these, and I'm not sure who these younger girls are, but I'm sure they went on to follow in their footsteps. Next we have Irene E. Hockenberry Upton. The picture we have is from her high school annual. And so I think she was known as Reenie. And it says, "A merry heart maketh a cheerful countenance." So that's a picture of her from her high school annual. She was born in Piqua, and she graduated from Piqua High School in 1911. She then entered Piqua Hospital Nursing School and graduated in 1914 as a registered nurse. She worked in Brooklyn, New York, and in New Jersey before joining the U.S. Army in 1917. She served as an Army nurse until 1920, stationed at Walter Reed Hospital. She then served as Piqua's public health nurse from 1921 and 1930. She was listen to this, she was the first female member of the local American Legion. Pretty amazing. And she was a member of the YWCA. As you know, we have a garden space just outside that was dedicated to her, and another amazing woman, Miss Irene Hockenberry Upton. The next one, Miss Monabelle Abbott Hutchins. 1909 to 1981. Beautiful, beautiful woman. Oh my goodness. She was active in radio in Cincinnati, and the leading role in The Life of Mary Worth in the New York City soap opera on the radio in 1935 to 1938. She had a local show on our own radio station, WPTW, called Our Best Bet from 1951 to 1976, and she was a member of the YWCA and a founding member of Friends of the YWCA. She was a huge promoter of Girl Scouts. She worked with the Salvation Army, American Red Cross, and American Cancer Association, and the Fine Arts Council, and various public school committees. She encouraged environmental awareness through bird watching. She loved birds. And Lisa told me a story, and I can't remember what it was, but the fact that she said, somebody was making a comment about the birds, and her comment was, "The blackbirds need to eat too." So another amazing woman, Miss Monabelle Abbott Hutchins.
She was my Girl Scout leader.
Was she your Girl Scout leader? Oh my goodness, yeah. Oh wow.
She loved raccoons too.
She loved raccoons?
Her windowsill and over her little window.
Oh wow. Wow, wow, wow. Wow, I'll tell you. Amazing women. The next two I want to talk about are Laura or Lola Hill, 1888-1981, and Ruth Reed, 1927 to 2015. So Lola Hill was born in Piqua, and she was one of Miami County's earliest female newspaper reporters. Did you hear that, Sam? Earliest female newspaper reporters, beginning in 1914 at the Piqua Daily Call. And she was the editor from 1926 to 1964. Of course, she was on the YWCA board, and she, along with Ruth Reed, the lifestyle editor of the Piqua Daily Call, were both huge supporters of the YWCA with articles in the paper. Amazing women. So these are a few of notable Piqua women that I have mentioned, and I have a few more that I want to mention who, if the YWCA would have been in existence during their time, I assure you would have been an active and contributing member to the YWCA and its mission. So the first one I want to introduce you to is Bertha C. Anderson. 1887 to 1971, Tinker's Tim and the Witches. So she was born in Piqua and the author of several nationally known children historical fiction books, including Tinker, Tim, and the Witches, which was picked as a weekly reader book club edition in 1953 and won the Ohio Anna Award in 1954. Does anybody remember Bertha Anderson? Okay, and I'm not sure if she was born here, so she may have moved away. The next one is Clara Anderson, and there's no relation to Bertha. 1850s, and Jim could not give me another date for her. That house probably looks familiar. It's in existence today. So Miss Anderson served as one of Piqua's first African American public school teachers in the 1870s. 1870s. She was one of the teachers at the segregated black school known as Boone Street School, located on the northwest corner of Boone and College Streets. The opening of this school for African American students in 1872 and began a 13-year period of official racial segregation in the Piqua City schools. So this school, is, like I said, the house is still in existence today. Somebody is living there, but that was the school for African American students in 1872, and she was a teacher in 1870s in that time. Another pretty amazing. Does anybody remember Miss Anderson? No? Okay. Another amazing woman. So the next one is Mary E. Hall, and I could not get any pictures of her, but she was also born in Piqua, and she served as a teacher in the Piqua High School from 1869 to 1877. And listen to this. She would have been a member of the YWCA. In 1872, she briefly resigned her position as a teacher over the issue of low wages paid to women teachers. In June of 1877, she became the first female administrator in the high school, 1877, serving as the high school principal until 1905. She served as the principal of both the first and second high schools, which are pictured here. And in 1896, she was one of the charter members of the Piqua chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution. Miss Mary E. Hall. And I did not have any pictures of Belle C. Buchanan Shear Evans, and she was 1854 to 19. I did not have another date for her. But this goes along with a little bit of her story. So she was born here in Piqua. She was the first local female physician in the 1880s. She saw a need in Piqua, so she set up the first free dispensary or free clinic on the public square for those in need. Another amazing woman saw a need in her community and responded to it and answered it. Amazing. You know, when I think about the YWCA, that's exactly what the YWCA does. As we have listened to these stories, as we have looked through the lives of these women, they all saw a need in their community, and they responded to it. They responded to that need in order to make our community a better place. So I have just a few to share of a few people who are currently, some of them are even with us today, a little bit of their story. The first one is Lucy Fest.
Somebody told me if I saw her.
Lucy's an amazing woman.
She's got cancer.
Lucy served as the executive director of the American Red Cross, the director of community affairs for Upper Valley Medical Center, and as director of the Economic Development Department for the city of Piqua. She was the first female elected to serve on the city commission and as mayor. She served as a board member for the Piqua Improvement Incorporation, Forest Hill Cemetery, and Grow Piqua now. She has received numerous awards and honors here in Piqua, including the Order of George and the YWCA Woman of Excellence in 1998. You know, she has done some amazing things here in our community. I actually ran into Lucy last night at Three Joe's. She looks really, really good. But Lucy has done so much here in our community. Another great example of a woman who's responded to the needs that we have here in Piqua. The next one, I believe the next one is Miss Peg Hance, the oldest living president of the YWCA. She taught many classes here. She served on the YWCA board, was a founding member of the Friends of the YWCA. I believe you love to play duplicate bridge. Is that correct? Yep. And I'm told you are a fabulous cook. Definitely. Peg, thank you for all that you have done for the YWCA. Another woman just responding to the needs here in our community. The next one is Miss Eleanor Gatchell. And I was honored to be Eleanor's pastor for 8 years. She is the oldest member of the YWCA at 107. And I have to tell you, she is 107. My mother is at the same facility at Brookdale where Eleanor is. She still gets up and goes to meals. She is just an amazing, amazing woman. In the 1920s, Eleanor was active as a teen. She was a school teacher here in Piqua, and she then became active in the YWCA, as many school teachers did. She was a board member, and her husband, Clint, was an active member of the YMCA. So they kept their love in the family on so many levels. And Eleanor was also a youth group advisor as well. Eleanor May Gatchell, another amazing woman. And the next one. Now everybody's on the edge of their seat. Next one is Cheryl Beaker. She was the first woman of excellence in 1997. She retired from Edison Community College, where she was on faculty and program director for the Early Childhood Education Program for 23 years. She currently serves as a consultant to monitor the Ohio Department of Education on quality services to preschool children. Another woman here in our community responding to the needs, especially for our children, some of our youngest citizens. So, wow. Wow, wow, wow. What an amazing group of women we have heard from. And as I think about the YWCA and its mission, these women definitely are the epitome of what the YWCA is all about. Lisa mentioned to me when I was meeting with her to gather information to talk for my talk today, that many were asked to share just one word with her, one word that would describe the YWCA and what it means to them. And she shared with me that one of the words that really popped out to her, that was given to her, really hit the nail on the head. And that is the word responsive. Think about it. Think about these women that we have just heard of. Their lives, their stories, the ways that they responded to the needs here in our community. Responsive is what the YWCA is all about. As you can plainly see, the YWCA over the past 100 years has been responsive to the needs of what is happening here in our community and the world. And I know that with all the YMCA has done and is doing, that it will continue to be responsive to the needs here in Piqua and throughout the world as well. How do you handle the many needs that we have? You know what you do? you find a group of like-minded women to gather and respond, and that is just what the Piqua YWCA has been doing again and again and again. Give yourselves a hand. So I want you just to think, I mean, that was a lot of women, a lot of stories, but look around this room and think about the women who have impacted you, the women who you have sat next to, whether it's on a bus trip or at a meal or when you're downstairs exercising or whatever it is that you do as you gather here. Think about those women that encourage you to keep coming back again and again and again. Because it's about community. It's about family. It's about coming together, being together, and making the world a better place. That indeed is what has been happening here for 100 years. You have made our community a wonderful, wonderful place to live. You have reached out for the least of these in our midst. And I know that you all will continue to do that as well. So thank you for your work. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for all you have done for the citizens of Piqua and around the world as women of the YWCA. Thank you. So I have one piece before we're done. We got one more thing. We're not done. We're not done. So I have a song that is very meaningful to me. It's a song that I've used before with women's retreats in a church setting. And it's a song that I think really speaks to who you all are. And so what we're going to do is listen to it. I have a little slideshow that I'll move through as we listen to it. But it's a song called I'm sorry, I can't even speak now. It's called 1,000 Grandmothers. Oh, Joe, what did I just do? Help me, honey. Somehow I lost my page. There we go. All right. So it's called 1,000 Grandmothers. And it's by a woman named Holly Neer, and I think it really speaks to what we have been looking at today.
Let